Welcome to this Elite Dangerous Dev Diary. This one's going to be about the making of what we call the Damocles video. Now, if you've not seen that video, I suggest you go and watch it and then come back here, because there will be no sound coming or anything coming from the video, and it won't be the best way that it shows itself. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to talk through the video as it's playing and then go through it a second time, talking about the content of each individual scene and why it was done that way. But what I want to do first is just explain how this is done and why it's been done the way it has. Now, all of this is rendered in our in-game engine live, apart from a few spot effects that have been applied afterwards, which I'll call out at the time. In fact, following this, there will be an art diary that will go into more detail of the individual art effects and how they worked, and we'll actually show some live footage to compare the rendered without the effects, if you like. So this scene has been very, very useful to us. This is all rendered in-game, but the ships are flying along predefined paths, which has been very helpful because from an art perspective, when you're doing particle effects, you see the smoke on the ship and all the burn marks and all that sort of thing there, that to make sure that they're all in place, and when you change them you can review them and look at them and get them and balance them just so. One of the problems with doing art in a game like that, you've got to find the location in the game, try it, and you might not quite get it in the same setup, or you might get it against a different background, so you're not comparing like with like. And in that sense this has been really useful. And then the other thing is trying to, because it's not just that, it's also looking at the animations, looking at the weight of things. It's also the sound. The principal reason to do this in the first place was for the music. Because it was fantastic, the response we had from some very, very good composers wanting to write for the game. And so what we wanted as a way of judging it, even though the music in the game is going to be done using reactive music, using background things that all join together. And also we will be talking, Jim will be talking more about that in the future. But it allows us to judge like with like, and that has been great, and that's how in the end we've been able to choose Erasmus's wonderful music, which was shown originally in this video. Okay, so going back to the beginning now, we can see us just arriving in the system. The dashboard below is placeholder. I've already seen it looking better in game, so it's one of those things. You see the ice effect on the cockpit there, and also now you see it here, we see a lens flare effect. Now that was applied afterwards, but there will be something similar in the game. We now see flying into the group, and if I just pause it there, we can see this cruiser with the round thing. It's a cruiser built by the Imperial Cruiser shipyard, but in the same way you might have F-15s, F-16s run by other countries than America, the Empire will sell to imperial-leaning planets or systems their own big ships. So this Imperial Cruiser isn't actually supposed to be an Imperial Cruiser. It will be run by another sort of minor power, if you like. And that's why it's being attacked by the Federal ship that we've seen here, the Damocles. Now, the Imperial ships are very much built for luxury, and what we can see here, as the ships sort of fly through, obviously not something you're not intended to do, through this circular section, you'll see that the whole circular section inside the outer toroid is rotating. And that's because we think a lot of ships will spend a lot of time stopped, and there will be no gravity, it will just float around. Now, things like magnetic boots would make getting around very easy, and they wouldn't be great big clunky things like you might see on a diver. These will just look like normal shoes, but they'll have fancy technology to make them stick to the surfaces. But where luxury comes is where you've actually got gravity, and that's why this thing is spinning. It's using the centripetal force to actually give you the sensation of gravity as you move around. I mean, this ship is huge, and that round section is also huge, and the point is, even a low level of gravity is very comfortable. Water settles and all that thing. I've mentioned that a little in a dev diary, but this is where you actually see the contrast with the Empire, where for the senior people, at least on this ship, they get gravity for their sleeping quarters, for where they eat and all that sort of thing, whereas the Federal ship is a lot more sort of Spartan, a lot more just practical warship essentially. So moving on with the video, we see these ships that have been called forward. You see the strafe marks there, all of those particle effects. You know, you want to be able to see the results of battle in game. And I think getting that right is one of the things this video has been very useful for. Look at the giant plasma cannon, for example, on that Imperial ship. And we see here these little guys are Imperial fighters, very, very small, very nimble ships, but actually not with very many hit points. And we can also now see into the Federal ship, the central section. And with design, one of the design briefs we've had with this is trying to design the ships with their function in mind. Just as you've seen with the Imperial Cruiser, that, you know, luxury and essentially travelling embassy is one of the roles they see it as being very important for them. So they're very, you know, image is very important in that culture. For the Federal ship, it's utility that's important. And the reason it's got this central corridor is this is where the ships come out of their hangars, and it's to try and protect the hangars from outside. So that the reason they face inward and the ships fly out, you know, they're already up to speed, the pilot's already in control when they become vulnerable to any other attacking ships. And the presumption is, okay, the power is down on this particular ship, but that would be very, very heavily protected, and potentially with things like shields around it. So in fact, looking at that in more detail, you know, one of the things that we are very conscious of is making sure that we can sort of feel the weight just by looking at it in the way things are animated, the way things move. And so just taking a slight aside on that, just looking at the way, you know, landing gear, all of that sort of thing works. You see the weight, the way something moves, the way a gun recoils, that we see a little bit in the video. That's something that we are paying a lot of attention to, and you see in this sort of insert. I think just gives a certain richness to the game that you'll see especially when you see ships up close in hangars and such places. So moving on, what you see here is you see the Sidewinders of the attacking ships. These are all in game, but actually there's a lot more to come that you're not seeing here. Things like the way the heat vents open and all that sort of thing. Some particle effects, trails and things like that we've still to get right. But you do see the richness of that internal volume here, and some of the effects and the lighting effects we've got. Now that zoom in, there was a focus effect there that was applied after the event. That's not something that's come from in-game, but it's something that's we've done to make this video sort of impactful and work. Similarly, the heat flares there, you wouldn't see heat flares in space because there is no air for it to go through. But there are a lot of little things like that that are expectational, things like you know, whether you can see laser beams. It feels really rubbish if you can't see them, but actually in space, unless you're firing through a dust cloud, you wouldn't see a laser beam. And then the final cliche here is when the Imperial Cruiser gradually leans over, almost as if it's sinking. I don't think that sort of thing would happen, but I think that's for effect, to show, you know, the battle's been won, if you like. So thank you very much for watching this video. There'll be a lot more to come on this, and more to come, including later this year, gameplay and how that works around these scenes. So thank you very much for watching, and speak to you again soon. And thank you very much for supporting Elite Dangerous.